Hello, this is Robert Drysdale, some kind of fighter here. Rob, we wanted to ask you a question. How did you change your training when you started training for MMA compared to Jiu-Jitsu? Your ground training, that is.
Up to the time I was training in Brazil before I moved to the U.S., about 90% of my training was done in the gi, about 90 to 10%. Once I started fighting MMA, I changed that around about 90% of the time no gi, 10% of the time gi. There was that adaptation. Train with gloves all the time, always with gloves. It makes a big difference, especially when attacking the back. Lots of wall wrestling. To me, that's the key. Wall wrestling, wall wrestling. You know, and I feel that there's a huge blind spot there when it comes to MMA. I think a lot of people that come from a judo or wrestling background, they go, oh yeah, I got it down, it's just like judo or wrestling, and it's not. You put a wall there, that's not wrestling, it's not judo, it's something completely new. And I think that's a huge world that is largely unexplored. And to me in MMA, that's about a third of the fight. If you look at grapplers that do well, that manage to out-grapple their opponents in the cage, they're normally using the fence in their favor. Because a fence can be your enemy, can be your friend, depending on how you use it, both defending and attacking. So you have to learn how to use it in your favor, and there's like a huge skill set there that not a lot of fighters care to learn. They'll spend a lot of time hitting pads, a lot of time sparring, and then they'll freestyle wrestle, and then they'll grapple, but there's no wall wrestling. You know, it's a huge blind spot there, I believe. So I spent a lot of time into that and kind of developed my own little system there, my own little techniques from that position. What else? You know, main adaptations were those right there. Sparring. I learned how to strike into takedowns. A lot of people would either strike or grapple, and it's not always easy to make that transition. I spent some time working on that as well, trying to combine the striking with the clinching, which is a whole skill set in itself, you know, apart from grappling or striking. So I think those are some of the main adaptations.
Awesome, Rob. Thanks. One other thing. With your jiu-jitsu training, what do you mostly focus on? Do you do a lot of like drills, or drills meaning like moving like from one move to the next in a drill form, or do you focus more on sparring?
I think a lot of times when people are talking about drills, they're talking about different things. You know, like I've seen, oh, I'm going to drill, and I see what they're doing, and I consider it to be the equivalent of jogging. You know, if you jog every day, it might make your cardio better, so it's going to improve your jiu-jitsu in a way, but it's not going to make you more technical. And a lot of the drills I see people do is just pointless repetition, just frying your nervous system for no reason. You're not necessarily making yourself better. You know, like touching the guy's knees and shuffling your feet left and right. I mean, I've been doing jiu-jitsu for 18 years. I've never seen anyone pass anyone's guard like that. You know, so I'm pretty sure it doesn't work. But there's an intelligent way of drilling. Like I like drilling the way judokas drill, the way wrestlers drill. That makes sense to me because there's movement. Drilling to me is about learning how to deal with your opponent's reaction, which is the key to executing the move. It's not knowing the move. My mom knows a bunch of moves, but that doesn't make her good at jiu-jitsu. The fact that you know moves means nothing. The fact that you execute the move means a lot. So the key factor is learning how to deal with your opponent's resistance, and a lot of people ignore that. They'll drill with no resistance repeatedly for 2 hours a day and accomplish nothing by doing so. Whereas if you're moving around with your opponent, he's giving you mild resistance, that makes a lot more sense because it's closer to the fight. It's closer to what you're going to be encountering when you go live. So that drilling makes sense to me. With that being said, I don't spend a lot of time doing that. It's not how I learn. Although I'm not against it, to me it makes sense. My students do some, like we do that every day for 45 minutes a day. I make them execute the move with resistance. Once they learn the technique, first they learn the technique, then they execute it with resistance. That way they can approximate a real situation. To me, at the end of the day, mat time is king. You can have the best coach in the world, the best, nutrition, training. You can be a genetically gifted athlete. You can have it all. Mat time is where it's at. There's nothing like spending lots of time on the mats. It's the best teacher you'll ever have. Which is why I'm surprised that so many people spend so little time on the mats and feel like they talk like they know so much jiu-jitsu. And I feel that people that spend a lot of time on the mats who do know a lot of jiu-jitsu normally have their head down and don't talk about how much jiu-jitsu they know. It's ironic that way, right? But to me, the deciding factor of someone who's a true jiu-jitsu technician is how much time they spend on the mat. That's why I'm very suspicious of coaches who just sit in the corner, point the finger and tell people what to do and act like they're grandmasters of jiu-jitsu, but you never see them on the mats. I'm very suspicious of that. You know that even if you trained 10 years ago, nervous system is one of those things where if you're not constantly activated, you forget it. Like you'll forget your mother tongue. If I don't speak English or Portuguese for years, I'll forget how to speak English and Portuguese. We've seen that happen. Just imagine jiu-jitsu. So you'll forget jiu-jitsu. So I'm very suspicious of a lot of these coaches that go and just sit, don't train, yet they know everything. Like I'm looking at that and I'm going, how the hell do you know everything? You haven't trained in 20 years, or 10 years, or 1 year for that matter. So one lesson I always teach my students, and I strongly believe in this lesson, is that if you're not getting better, you're getting worse. There's no such thing as staying where you're at. Because where you're at right now is not where you're going to be 5 years from now. You're either going to get better, or you're going to get worse. There's no such thing as staying where you're at. And that's a very important lesson in jiu-jitsu I think a lot of people aren't aware of.
Awesome, Rob. I just want 2 quick questions this time. Outside of jiu-jitsu training, what other kind of training modalities do you use? Like, do you use any kind of strength conditioning? And if so, is it like a CrossFit? Is it like some kind of...
CrossFit is circuit training rebranded.
Yeah.
They got circuit training, something that's like 3,000 years old.
Yeah.
And they put a label on it and marketed it well and put it into a system, which makes sense. I think that was the good thing about it, is that putting things into systems helps people learn and stick to a routine. So that makes a lot of sense, but there's nothing new about it. I've been doing, I guess you can say I've been doing CrossFit for 18 years. Like I'm a strong believer in conditioning for a tournament preparation. With that being said, I think it's pointless to be in shape unless you have a competition or a fight coming up. So if I don't have a fight coming up, why would I want to be in shape? I want to learn. So my focus goes into learning techniques, absorbing information. So my sessions are longer with longer breaks, more techniques, less worried about conditioning. Once I get closer to a competition or a fight, then the focus stops being on learning new techniques, because I'm not likely to learn something to make it a fight. But it's a focus in being peak physical condition in order for me to, perform my best. So it changes a little bit. It can be more strength and technique based prior to the competition. The closer you get to the competition, the more the cardio and explosiveness and being in peak shape and training what you already know comes into play, because at the end of the day, what you already know is what you're more likely to use when you compete or fight.
Awesome, Rob. And one other thing, as a coach, I was actually in Vegas now recently, and I was watching some of your students compete. They all did excellent, man. One of your brown belts, actually, his name leaves me. He was unbelievable. I mean, he likes a flying armbar, I believe.
Renato. Well, I will take credit for spotting Renato. I won't take credit for teaching him jiu-jitsu. He's a student of his father, Valdir Canuto. He's an IBJJF ref. He has a school in São Vicente, Brazil. That's his teacher. I spotted him a long time ago, and I liked him as a person. I thought he had not only outstanding jiu-jitsu, but outstanding character. And these things to me that means more than having good jiu-jitsu. So I brought him to Vegas, and I wanted him to have him assist me in classes. And so he's teaching my classes while I'm gone. And I think if he sticks to it, he'll go down as one of the best lightweights in the history of the sport.
Yeah, definitely. How do you for training them? How do you balance your seminars, your obviously your active competition, along with being your coach? Is it difficult to
Very.
Yeah.
Very. If I could, in retrospect, if I could look at the last 8-9 years of my life, it's been it's one big blur of being busy. Most people wear one hat. I wear like 6 different hats. I fight, I teach, I travel seminars, I run an affiliation program. I'm a single dad, just started a franchise business, school owner. I mean, I'm all over the place. And, in hindsight, I may regret it one day. 20 years from now, I'll look back and I go, I should have just fought, or I should have just did this or just done that. But I think that with, reasonable amount of success, I have managed to do a little bit of everything fairly well. I think that I may not be the best coach, but, you have to ask my students and see how they feel about me as a coach, as a teacher. Maybe I wasn't the best fighter, but, I was up there. I fought some good guys. I think I did okay in my fights. Maybe I wasn't, maybe I don't have the biggest jiu-jitsu team in the world, but, we're growing. We have over 100 affiliates worldwide. So, I managed to wear many hats, and I think with some degree of success, do it all reasonably well. And at the end of the day, man, when I look, I'm happy. Like, I do what I love. I like everything I do. There's nothing in my life other than dealing with, the occasional drama. But other than that, my life is great. I managed to shape my life in a way where I do things I didn't even dream of doing when I started training. The outcome turned out to be much better than the expectation or the dream. So now, this is well beyond my wildest dreams. When I was a teenager, I never thought I'd be in Athens one day teaching jiu-jitsu and get an interview. And didn't cross my mind. So when I look back, it's like, man, I live a great life. So thank you, jiu-jitsu.
Awesome, Rob. Thanks a lot for
Thank you,
being
guys.
here for Some Kind of Fighter. And everyone, please subscribe to Some Kind of Fighter, see this interview, and we'll talk soon.